Hello and welcome back to the Life Beyond Limits podcast. This week I'm joined by Charlene Trinsi. After moving from Brazil at 19, her home country, she spent several years traveling across Scandinavia, raising 2 kids and building a business. Throughout her life, self-doubt has become her best toxic friend, who kept her in her comfort zone and ensured that she wasn't moving forward. Having traveled to many places before settling in the UK, her self-doubt originally came from her accent and speaking a foreign language, but then grew into other parts as she allowed it to keep growing. Self-doubt has stopped her from pursuing her dream for years until she started working on it and understanding that this was actually a strength and not a weakness. Now she uses her skills to help coaches and service providers build their brand and uses her story to motivate and inspire other women who might be in a similar position. Today, Charlene is sharing how she's managed to reframe her relationship with self-doubt and turn it from her toxic friend into her traveling partner. So welcome, Charlene. It's lovely to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I think, do you know what? Each and every one of us can relate to self-doubt being a toxic best friend, or certainly a toxic friend, for sure, and causing us to question ourselves and our abilities. What I love about your journey is that despite all of that, you've continued to be very fluid and flexible and take every opportunity at face value and really kind of use it to your advantage. And you've never really let it hold you back. And so I would really love to know how you've managed to do that, from leaving your home country, from traveling Europe, and then obviously settling in the UK. I know that you went through a lot of challenges to feel welcome and settled in England. And so it would be really great, because this is coming up a lot with people that I'm speaking to about accents and about not necessarily feeling that they fit in because there's a judgment perhaps on not being native tongue English, and also just actual accents anyway, and the judgment that might come from that. So I'd love to rewind back to the beginning before sort of finding out how you've managed to befriend it and invite it on your journey and your travels, because it's always there. It's always there. It's always traveling with you. But you no longer let it dictate you in the way that it previously did. And for that, it's magical. So if you wouldn't mind sharing it, that'd be great.
All right. So one thing that I like to say, it's when I mention like, oh, it was my best toxic friend. It's because I think if you analyze when you're a child or even a teenager, when you start to get those ages, your self-doubt, it's more about like, can I do that? Right? If you're a child and your parents or someone else say, hey, you cannot jump from there, you might hurt yourself. Then as a self-doubt, you say, can I? Will I?
Yeah.
And then you do it. So it's a self-doubt that helps you and encourages you. But I think as you start growing and being aware of a lot of things around you, that start to hurt you a little bit more. However, you are used to that. It's a feeling, it's your best friend who is always there to encourage you. But then it starts, I think, encouraging you in the wrong way. It's like, oh, is it that? Am I good enough? No, I shouldn't be doing that. That's right. Then it starts to go wrong. But then I think for a lot of us adults, we take this for so long with us that it's quite hard to kind of leave it apart. For me, it was basically that. When I was in Brazil, I was a fashion designer, and it was really hard to get into that industry because it was quite expensive to go to fashion school. It was expensive to do any courses around that area and things like that. However, my self-doubt at the moment was like, can you do it? Yes, you can. How can you do it? And it started going on. When I left Brazil to go to Iceland, which was a place that, I had no idea how it was going to be, that self-doubt, like for some time, instead of encouraging me, start kind of like, sink me in my dreams. It's like, why should they like you? Why should they like your designs? Oh, I couldn't get a job in the fashion world there. So it was like, see, you are really not that good because you can't get a job here and all those things. And then in Iceland, they speak Icelandic, and I was learning Icelandic. But then I start learning English because I thought, okay, even if I go out from here, if I have to travel, I will need English. I was not good at English at the time. I knew very few words when I moved there. So I start learning English by watching Friends, the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw, so the thing is, like, I never went to school to learn English. I learned it by myself alone, just at a time where we didn't have Google's translator. So I just have a dictionary, and I would just go through the page, look for words, and it was a very raw process in all of that. And of course, I had an accent. I have an accent. But then with everything that, came on my journey, after some time being there, I was like, okay, that self-doubt kind of like, I push it a little bit and say, what can I do? I really like this creative world. I like creating things. And then I start researching a little bit more and say, okay, I have a computer, I have an internet. I don't have much because I used to live in a very, very small town. There was, I think, about maybe 600 people in my town at that time. So it's very small. I was like, okay. And then I found out about graphics design. And I was like, oh, that's something I can learn. And then at the time, there was not much about online courses, but there was like some magazines and some articles and things like that. So I start studying that, and again, start studying graphics design. And start getting, a little bit better at that, into a point where I could go to school a few years later. It was a point where I was speaking better English, better Icelandic, and then I could go to school there. But, I got to that time, a lot of things happens to kind of reassure your insecurities that you shouldn't be doing certain things. And I think for us adults, we measure a lot of our self-worth based on things and experience that happens to us. Instead of like looking for the truth, we look for things around, right? And those things start to kind of come up. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not good enough to work with that. I'm not good enough for this. And my accent will, it's on the way and things like that. So I start getting more into photography. I have a friend of mine who was a photographer, and she was like, you like to create, maybe you like photography, you like to draw and everything. You'd like the process, lighting and everything. It's very close to it. I start photographing. And it was when I got pregnant with my second child. And during the process, of breastfeeding, we had to be a lot right away, can breastfeed and just sit down around. And so I start studying online. Through that process, I start getting more about photography, and I start learning that process. And it was when I start kind of like really get that fire of, okay, I can do something. I really can. And I start doing. And then it was when it was really harsh, like when the accent started coming in, because I had to talk to more people around the world and a lot of things with it. Then it was, this was about maybe 8 years ago. So it was already, online space was already way bigger than it was when I started in Iceland. And at that point, I moved to Sweden.
Right.
Right. I moved from Iceland after 8 years in Iceland. I moved to Sweden. And then in Sweden, I was learning photography. I was working as a photographer. And then I start seeing that, that light start to come stronger, like, oh, your accent, this, your accent, that. And I was like, oh, that's so hard. It's so hard to have that fire new that you really want to do something, but that other part saying like, with your accent, no one, it's really going to trust you, like you, want to work with you, and all those small details that comes in mind. And that's why I always say like, oh, my self-doubt was my toxic friend, because it's like that person that it's always, beside you and has been all this year. So why would you listen to that at that moment? It's been with you for so long. Why would you stop listening right now? So And I was like, okay.
Charlie, had anyone ever told you about your accent, or was it just simply your toxic friend ego telling you about your accent?
Yes, there was a few times people would mention something.
Which then reinforced it for you.
Once I had a prospective client, and we had been talking about me working with her on her branding and things like that. And then after, I think maybe 4 weeks, I don't know, a few weeks, going back and forth to say, do you like this? And she's like, yeah, I love it. But, and then there was always something until I confronted her, say, okay, why are you not moving forward with me? If you really don't want to work with me, that's all right. That's okay. But so far you like the parts of design, you like some things, but then you stop. And then she say, like, you know, what bothers me, it's that I can't understand you because of your accent. There's some words that you say that it's not the way I say it, and things like that. I was like, all right, that's okay. It's, you know, up to you. And then I just move it on from there.
That obviously then reinforced the fears that you had about the fact that, because there are plenty of people with accents all around the world, right, that aren't living in their home country. But I guess when you have that personal fear or awareness of being different or speaking differently, and then it's reinforced on you, it then reinforces that doubt on you even more. So how did you push beyond that, from her saying that, and from the voices in your head saying, you know, you speak differently, people won't understand you? Where did you start to recognize that actually you could move beyond that?
It was, we see a lot of people talk about representation. And into that point, I didn't pay attention to that. You know, I didn't realize how important representation was. And it's funny, like, I'm really a big fan of TV shows, right? As you can see, I learned English by watching Friends. And then I was watching another TV show at the time. It's one of my hobbies to just sit down after work and watch a TV show, right? So I would start watching Modern Family. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. And there's this character, which is a Spanish speaking person in an English world. And she speaks with a very, very heavy accent. And I start, like, you know, the show is amazing, the way they portray it and everything. And I start kind of like seeing some of her interviews and things like that, Sofia Vergara. And she mentioned that, she say, I was always trying so hard to not have my accent. And when they cast me for that, when I went to the, I don't know, the interview or something like that, she said, I ditched that. And it was like, hey, I have an accent, that's me, whatever. And they loved her and she got the part. And that was kind of like her big break, right? And that was kind of, for me, it was my representation. Was like, you know, she's amazing the way she is and speaking with an accent. And that's her. Why should, you know, we all have to be the same and pronounce the things the same and be. So it was kind of like, it was around the same time when all this happened, you know, the thing about the person telling me that, all the self-doubt, the very strong, you know, this strong feeling of want to have a business, but the fear of rejection. And then it was like, okay, yeah, I have an accent and that's it. I don't care. You know, a lot of Friends then at the time was a kind of a very popular show. And people start to kind of like, I think, acknowledge that, say, hey, you have the same accent as Sofia Vergara. You have Gloria's accent. And my kid, you know, at the time, she's born outside. So she does speak English with way less accent than me. You know, her accent is from the places. So she was like, yeah, you speak like her. And I was like, yeah, I do. And then it was when I start on it, like, yeah, I do speak like Laura. So does that make me less intelligent, less creative, you know, less of a person, less worthy of anything else? I don't think so. You know, and there's this very funny moment on the show where everyone is laughing about the way she pronounced things, and she's like, you guys only speak one language, I speak two. Do you know how intelligent I am in my own language? And I was like, that struck me as, that's so true. People don't really realize how hard it is to learn more than one language.
Oh my God.
At that time, right, I was speaking my own language, which is Portuguese. I did learn Spanish. I speak fluent Spanish because of my friends in Iceland. I speak a little bit of Icelandic. I was already learning Swedish, and then I had English. So why?
I think that's pretty damn amazing myself.
Right? But I didn't see that. That was the thing. And that's why I always tell people, like, sometimes it's really hard. We talk about how people are amazing, and it's so sad how they can't see that, how they cannot see themselves through our eyes.
Yeah.
I could not see that as a great accomplishment to speak more than one language. It was really a burden. It was like, oh my God, I would never be accepted. It's really hard. I can't pronounce things the proper way. My grammar is not right. All those small things that come to mind, and it's really hard. But then, I start realizing that, it's not really true. It's a really good thing. I can understand more language. I can, understand people. So why should I be hiding that? Why should I be trying to fit in where?
Exactly. Do you know what? I was born in Germany, but I don't speak German. I left when I was a month before I turned 7. So I was just starting to learn the language. But not enough for me then really to build on it until I then started it again in secondary school, and by which time I'm not blessed with languages. And I've always, whenever I've gone abroad, had such admiration for people who can speak English, who live in foreign countries. And I think sometimes it can make us Brits a little bit lazy because we just expect everyone to speak our language rather than us necessarily always trying to speak theirs. And I've always sat there, and I love going to London and sitting on the tube and just hearing all the different accents, and they're speaking their mother tongue, and then they turn and speak someone else in fluent English. And I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to be able to do that. And it's crazy. It's like, I've always admired that. And yet you have that skill within you. And yet you've always seen it as, like you said, a weakness, not a strength. And it's just so powerful how, like you said, when you're in it, you can't see it. When you look at it from me, who's looking at you, I'm like, wow, that opens up so many doors, because not only can you speak English, but you can speak all these other languages. And so if you're doing a job that your audience is so much more vast and bigger, and the opportunities that you can have from that is incredible, because you're so diverse. And there's a lot of things that you can offer that I couldn't, because I don't speak those languages. But it's really tough when we're caught up in that cycle. And I love how even though your client had turned around and said that to you, in that moment, you said it was in and around the same sort of time, you then, a door opened to you for you to watch the TV program and to meet Sophia on TV and to see, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And also, again, when you embrace your wholeness, people probably don't even notice your accent, because they're so drawn in on your confidence or on other things. When we draw attention to something that we feel as a flaw or a weakness on our part, and we hold on to that, then people tend to notice it a little bit more. It's like if someone's got a big spot on their forehead or something, but it's not big, but it's big to you. And every time you look in the mirror, you're like, oh my God, everyone's just going to look at that and think, and then you'll meet friends for coffee and they won't even notice it. Because they don't look they see you as a whole person. They don't just go, oh, look, Em's got a spot. It's like, we focus on these things and then it holds us back. But the reality is, when you don't, no one will notice.
That's the thing.
And it's very sexy, your accent, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And that's the thing, because that moment where I was watching interviews and things from Sofia Vergara, I didn't perceive her character as like, oh, she has an accent and that's an issue. It was basically like, she has an accent because she's from another place and that's it. It was not like something, just like say, it was not something that I would cat on as a bad thing or anything else like that. It was neutral, you know. But then it was just like when I start seeing, it's like, okay, yeah, but that's me. But I perceive also that. And of course, there was that person who say, you know, not such a nice way, you know, but I also had other clients who were really amazing. So why should I focus in one bad person, you know, and few others that, you know, in Iceland, some people have sometimes mention my accent when I was trying to speak Icelandic and things like that. Why should I kind of like pick on those small details and not on the bigger ones when people are really compliment me, you know, on my creativity and the work and things like that. So it was when I start, okay, now bad things always happen, you know, unfortunate things happen. But if I focus on those, I'm giving them power. And that's not my goal here, you know. So I start focusing on the good ones. I'm from like I always say that, and it's something also I'm breaking now from it. It is like I'm not good at writing. When I was a child in school, I was not a creative writer. I was not that good at writing in my own language. At 1 year in high school, I had to how to say, like a remake, like go it again to school, like you know, when you go to the next grade.
Yeah.
When
You
I
had
went
to
to the
redo.
last, yeah, like to the last grade on high school, on the past one, I did not match my grades for Portuguese, you know, as a language. And then the teacher say, either you have to remake the whole year, or we can make an arrangement. You come for 6 months only on the Portuguese classes, and if you can achieve the grades, then you just move on with your life. And I was like, all right, yeah, I can do that. I just don't want to do it all over again and then have to do the last year. They say, okay. So I did 4 months, and then on the 4th month I achieved the grades, and they say, okay, now you're free, you can just continue going on. And that was always in my head, like, you're not good at writing. You're not good at writing. Every time I had to write something, it was like, oh my God. One thing very funny, I'm really passionate about law. So I went to law school in Iceland. I entered the school, you know, I could go to college and just enter the university. I don't know how you call here, if it's college or university. There it's university.
Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah, so I went for international law. And as you can imagine, it's already a language that it's really difficult because it's very formal, you know, to speak about laws and things like that. And I was doing that in English and Icelandic.
Wow.
So when it come the time to write, I was like, oh, no, not again. But I did push through for about a year. But then when it came the part of only Icelandic, I couldn't handle anymore. So I dropped out. But it was something that I was like, always holding in my head, like, you know, you can't write. That's why you couldn't move on with the university in law and things like that. But then now after all these years, it's the same thing with the accent. I start noticing like, okay, I was not good at writing. And I start noticing that with my kids, because the school puts you on a box and they grade you and everything based on a very old system. That doesn't mean I'm not creative, right? I might have some flaws on my grammar and things like that in Portuguese and English. However, I can write in English. I can write in Portuguese. So why not? You know, I can always improve my skills by studying a little bit more, or just, you know, going through, you know, just pushing through, and that's it. So I stopped saying that I was not good at writing. You know, and it was something that also pushed me to go to graphics design and all those things. It was that because I thought I will never be able to work with something that I have to write, because since I'm not good at writing even in Portuguese, how can I write in English, right? But now I do. And you know, part of my business is to work copy, you know, to write copy for my clients. And that's it. And one of my clients, she does have a copywriter with her. And I have to go through with a copywriter, with this person who supposedly should be, better than me. I had that in my head, people who are copywriters are better than me. And now it's like, okay, it's not that case of being better than someone else. It's just be able to have some skill that you're good enough to work and be good for yourself. So now I think one thing that I have in my self-doubts, it's I always try to look for hints like, is it that true? Why do I think that is true? Like with the writing thing, I'm not a creative writer. Why? I start asking myself why. And then I start kind of bursting those bubbles. Oh, because in school you were not good, but the school was so many years ago. You were a child, you were a teenager, you were still developing. Most of the experience that you had at the time are completely different the experience that you have now, and the things that you absorbed, it was totally different. The books you read, the things you experienced. So why? So it's not true, it's the past. You were not good, but doesn't mean you can't be good. So I start kind of like competing with others and decide to kind of like look into those skills and things for me, like why, because other people say that's not really a reason.
I love
right? So it was something that it really helped me push through all those things and now see, okay, self-doubt, it's something that it's always there with me. It's always here trying to do some things, even here and there, but then I start to ask, but why? Just like if it would like be a friend telling me like, oh, you couldn't do that, and I would ask, why can't I do that? Why do you think that? Where is your perspective that I cannot do something? Where are you coming from?
And I love that. And I love, you originally started this whole episode talking about the freedom that of children initially, they're told don't do something, but they feel the fear and they do it anyway. And 9 times out of 10, they survive. But I also know, when they get caught up in the education system, and like you say, it's such an old-fashioned system that hasn't been updated in the way that we want it to. And that's a whole nother episode. But suddenly you're then put in boxes. And I'm going through that with my son at the moment. He's suddenly gone from being very confident and intelligent, and now he's being told he's below average on things. And it's like, compared to who? Like for me, no, you're not. And, I suppose I feel more pressure because of the work that I do to really kind of help him to go through that. But I really try and consciously work with him on his confidence and his belief. And like today, we cycled through the woods and he was going, but mummy, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I'm like, every time you think you can't, you say, I can, and you keep going. And he was all right, mummy. And he was doing that. And then we were doing some football and stuff, and he was then trying to catch the ball, and he kept going, I believe. And I'm like, it's just, that to me is education as much as, his phonics and his maths. He's got to educate yourself on your mindset and on your belief, because whether you're a child or an adult, we all can have knowledge, but if our internal dialogue is telling us we can't do it, it doesn't matter how much knowledge we have, we're never going to implement it in the way that we want to get the results we want. Child, teenager, adult, old person, whatever it may be, you've got to have the internal dialogue that matches the actions that you're taking. And so I really, really love that you've started to own it and say, well, why not? Why can I not do it? And that's so true. It's finding the evidence to dispel the myth or the story, or to prove to yourself that you can, whichever way you want to look at it. But it's just having that conversation, because I know, like you said, if your friend said you can do something, you would question why. But equally, if your friend was talking about herself and said, I'd love to do this, but I can't, you would also then question her and say, well, why not? Of course you can. But we tend not to do that so much with ourselves. And we almost go, oh, I can't do that. And because I've been telling myself I can't, so I won't even bother to engage in it. And so I love the fact that you've just spoken about the power of that, because it's so, so true. It's so, so true. The conversations we have with ourselves are one of the most powerful things when it comes to generating success, happiness, abundance, good health, good wealth, all of that sort of stuff. And it's a massive form of self-care, I think, because we're either showing ourselves love or real attitude and shitty behavior. And someone said to me the other day, would you be friends with someone who spoke to you the way that you speak to yourself?
Yep.
And oh my God, it cut like a knife. I was like, no, because I pride myself on being a great friend. I'm very protective and very loyal. I will stand up for everybody. I will never let anyone say a bad word, especially about my husband and my son and my family. But yeah, I was doing it to myself. Yeah. And, instead of saying the words like why can't I do that? I've just accepted that I can't do it because I've been telling myself I can't. Yeah. And then that opens up that whole conversation of how much accepted living are we all living, because we think that we can't do certain things because we've been told externally, but we've also been told internally, and yet we've never had the knowledge or the time or the confidence to question why.
Yeah absolutely.
And yet when you did start to question it, your world started to open up on a whole another level, and your confidence started to open up. Can you just talk through how that then started to unwind, like when you started to explore the fact that you could do it, and why couldn't you? I'd love to know what journey that then took you on, and what are the things you then lent in to move forward.
Yeah, when I start questioning all those details, it's basically like you start studying yourself, right? And it's, I think, hard for some people. Some people take as intuition, as self-doubt, and all those things, and trying to mix them and trying to separate them, and all those difficult decisions. And I start with those questions, right? Why? Or is it that true? Let's say it's different when you're like, okay, there is a path that it doesn't look safe, and you're like, should I take the path? It doesn't look safe. Is that true that it doesn't look safe? Yeah, it is true, because there's holes on the street or something, something is bad. Okay, so that's a self-doubt that helps you. And I think that's very important to acknowledge and say, yes, okay, yeah, I'm a brave woman, but there's certain things that should be intelligent to not do it. So that's not safe, and, would be putting my body or somehow in harm. So I'll not do it. However, with other things, you could ask, okay, why shouldn't you do it? Why shouldn't you open your business? Why shouldn't you make a video about your business? It is going to put you in harm. And you think, no, not really. Why you couldn't do it? Are you afraid of judgment? Yeah, maybe. And all those small details. And then you start kind of like, one thing that helped me a lot was journaling about those things. Yeah. Just write as, me talking to myself, and then writing about those. And then on those moments, I start to write. Yeah, okay. Maybe someone will judge me. Maybe, old friends or anyone else on the internet that I may contact might judge me. Maybe someone just like that past client. But then, so what? What's happening after that, right? And then I start pushing through a little bit more, and I start feeling more comfortable. One of the things I did, it was like, okay, I noticed that I was comfortable talking to someone else instead of talking to myself, like if I had to do a live or something like that. So I went to a group, and it was in a course that I was going through, and I say, hey, I have this issue where I really want to push through and make videos about my business, but I feel comfortable talking to someone else way more than talking to myself. Is anyone here, up to a collaboration? And so many of those ladies jump in and say, yeah, I would love to. Yes, let's talk on video and all that. And of course, the first videos were really awkward, and I would kind of like rumble a lot and not find the words and, be very nervous. However, that started getting easier and easier. And those collaborations were so amazing. Some of the ladies, we are still friends, you know, some of them are still in business, some are not, but we still talk and all those things. So once I start seeing that, you know, every little goal, and I think that's one point that I want to open here, it's make goals for yourself. No one have to see that, only you. If your goal it's like, okay, I want to open a business, all right, what's the small goal that it's going to take you to open that business? Is it to talk to someone? Is it to have a consultation with a business coach? Is it to make a live video about? Is it to make a marketing research and ask people? What is it, a small step that you can take towards, you know, making that big goal? And then I start doing that. And for me at that time, it was speaking more because of my accent. I thought it was not good. So I thought, okay, if I speak more, people will feel more comfortable. And just like say, if I didn't talk about my accent, no one would ever question. And I start seeing that. And the second thing was, okay, I want to start writing more, even though might be something wrong, but I will. And then I start doing that, and I start talking about that and telling people, hey, you know, I'm here, I'm writing these mini blogs on Instagram and things like that, or Facebook. I know that might be some mistakes and something. However, the people that I want to attract with my brand would not be that people that say, oh yeah, she forgot a, you know, a comma, or her grammar is not proper, so she might not be that intelligent or anything like that. The people who I want to attract to be in my world are the people who understand and say, hey, I can understand totally what she's coming from, even if her grammar is not perfect. I understand the story, I understand her, so why should I be picking on things? You know, I'm not her editor, she's not writing a book for me or anything, so why? And then I start pushing through, and this start opening more collaborations. I start being, of course, way more confident to show up on my stores, show up on Instagram, Facebook, going to podcasts, guest collaborations, live on Facebook collaborations, and of course, opening more windows. So it was when I decided to go full-time as a social media manager and branding strategist, which was something that I was, you know, between like making the photos. When I was in Sweden, I was a photographer, and I really, really love photography. It's not something that I put aside just because of the business. I still do it as a hobby. I think it's a very beautiful art. But I thought, okay, it is something that I really love. I love creating and I love seeing results. So when I see that I get a client and I can help her with all the tech parts of her business, putting a whole program together and seeing her launch that and seeing the results, her happiness is my happiness, you know? And I feel that fire that I said in the beginning, when you want to do something, you don't really know what it is, but you want to do something, you know, to accomplish something. And I start, okay, that's really, really cool. And then it was when I start, you know, investing more in opening my agents, which I call Trinsi Media. And as right now, of course, it is on the beginner stage. But as a, you know, a dream, like a plan in my head, I see myself with that big company where, you know, a entrepreneur, a someone would come in and say, hey, I have this idea. How can I, you know, position myself as an authority? How can I build my brand? I will need brand. I will need social media presence. Can you help me? And I would say, yes, you know, me and my team and I, we can do this and this and that. We're going to have photographers, we're going to have videographers, we're going to have the marketing department, and you're going to have to just show up and we're going to take care of everything. So that's a big dream of mine, which was really not possible a few years back. If I was always thinking that I could not speak to a person because of my accent, because they would not accept me, you know? So yeah, during that process of always questioning me, it had pushed me to now kind of like being here on your podcast and speaking to you, which you are a native English speaking person. And I would always be afraid to speak to a person like you and be judged. You know, I would be really afraid to show up on my stories like I do now and be judged. I would be afraid to show up on my Facebook group and be judged. So that opened a lot of doors. And for me, it's really amazing because I would never think I would be kind of like providing for my family with this job where I have to speak another language as I'm doing now.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm sat here and I'm like wanting to do a big happy dance for you, because it's just like your whole energy as you were talking about that was getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and it was amazing. And do you know what? It all comes from taking uncomfortable action, and you weren't afraid to take uncomfortable action. And the more you took that uncomfortable action, the easier it became, and that's where your confidence grew. And this is the thing that I see a lot of people getting wrong, is that they wait for the confidence first, or take action for action taking's sake, that is never going to move the needle of any aspect of their life. But when you take uncomfortable action with the, with the mindset of it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than nothing, and I will learn from it, and I can use this information, this feedback, to help me to grow and expand and to develop, then there's nothing to lose, because you're going into that action with permission to make mistakes, but with the knowledge that you will walk out of that experience with some kind of feedback. It could be, that's amazing, keep going, I didn't realize I was as good as that. Or it could be, oof, don't ever want to do that again. Or I do want to do that again, but maybe I will try it this way. All again, amazing bits of feedback that you then have to then grow. When we just stood waiting on the sidelines for the confidence to come, it never does. Well, when you're waiting for the right time, there's never the right time. When you're waiting for the most perfect program or partner or whatever it may be, that just won't happen, because what's perfect for you won't be perfect for someone else. And when you are a perfectionist, it will never be good enough, because you'll always be striving for this impossible dream. But when you are open to creating and taking uncomfortable action and making it your friend, so even though it's uncomfortable, it's not horrible. Even though it might be scary, it's going to be scary for anybody. But I'm choosing to respond to this uncomfortable action in a way that allows me to gather information. It's not going to mean that I'm shit at my job, or that I need to quit, or that someone doesn't love me, or whatever. It means I'm choosing to explore other possibilities and to learn. And I think, no one is ever in a position where they know everything. We're always learning. And it's when we stop learning that life becomes hard. And when we think, we know it all, that's just a whole nother level as well. But there's always more to learn. Life is always evolving. There's always new inventions coming through. There's always new ways of doing certain things and simplifying this, that, and the other. And so we have to be open to learning. And this, what you put yourself through and what most people are doing are just attempting to learn new stuff every day. That's it. It's not failing. I'm just learning. I'm learning. And when you can really start to reframe it as a learning opportunity rather than a failure, it feels so much nicer and less scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single, those steps that I'm mentioning that I had as goals and I went through, it's just like what I said, this self-doubt was keeping me on my comfort zone, because it was like, okay, I'm not good on camera, I'm not good at writing, that's okay, I came all this way to here and I'm fine, right? I'm alive and I'm okay, so that's okay. And you keep on that okay mindset, I'm okay, it's okay. But then it's that fire inside you that, okay, I'm okay, but I really would like to do more. I really would like to do something else. And you really don't, for me at that time, I really didn't know exactly what was. I knew I want to be successful. I want to be a successful business person. At that time, didn't really mean that I had to have my business. I could be working for someone else, but I really want to have that pride of being good at something and being successful. But those that comfort zone, those small details that I had to go through to make it to that point, it was for me at that time was hard. That's why I start like step by step. Okay, what can I do? So I start by learning new skills. And then with learning those skills, I start, knowing more people, getting to know people on the internet. And then by getting to know those people, I start noticing, one person here and there and how they were showing up, and kind of like start to see myself as that person. And it was, I think it's something for anyone listening. They might think, yeah, but there is always something in their head that they think, yeah, but. So I would say the first thing ever you have to do is eliminate that. It's eliminate that, yeah, but with me, I'm short, I'm fat, I'm not pretty. Like I said, I have a pimple, I wear glasses, I don't live in this place, I don't live in a beautiful apartment. There's always bad.
Yeah.
Eliminate that and just try to see what else can you do. But I don't live in a beautiful place, maybe to record things just like some influencers do. Eliminate that and try to see other side of thing. Yeah, but it doesn't exist anymore. And try to see, okay, I don't live in a beautiful place, but what can I do? Can I go to a park? Can I, do something else? Do I have just a plain wall where I can record, I can talk, I can make a picture? What can you do that it's not putting, yeah, but with me, this and that? Just eliminate that. Because my comfort zone was kind of like very fluffy and good because of those words. I always like, yeah, but I have kids, I have to take care of them. So I'm not always well dressed, and I don't have time to put on my makeup. I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. My life is not interesting. It was all those, yeah, but that made me stay there longer and longer. And I really wish that I could have the confidence and the knowledge I have now 10 years back. And it's always like that, right? Because if I could hear those words way back, like, yeah, eliminate that. Your life's not boring. I see that a lot, like especially now in this online world where people try to make it everything perfect, right? Sometimes they think it's their expectation of life will not match others. And for instance, like as for me, I was living at home, taking care of my child. So I was like, but my life is not that interesting. But now when I see from other perspectives, there were so many moms that their dreams were to be able to work from home to take care of their kids, right? And their dream was to be able to have time to just go for a walk with their kid on the park, on a weekday, just for the sake of doing. And it was something that I was doing all the time. I would take my kid from school and just go for a walk on the town, just play with her, and that's it. So when I learned that, I was like, oh, that start to get way more powerful now. Now I do have 2 kids, and I think my life is amazing. Even though it might not be amazing for some people who might like to travel, to be always in bars, pubs and things. My life is interesting for the type of life that I envision being, to have time to be with my kids, to have time for them, to talk, to not be, having them all the time on daycares or things like that. And it's just, right? It's just a different view. And I think for every single one who is going through that self-doubt, you have to eliminate that, yeah, but, and just think, what can you do? And think about that. Is that true? What you're doing matters. What you are matters. So just trying to eliminate those things. And it's not easy at the moment. We're not going to lie, right? It's not that like simple, oh yeah, now I'm perfect and I'm going with my life. It's not that. I don't think anyone's perfect. And the way you perceive yourself is just very different from other people. And once you eliminate those things and start talking about yourself the way you would talk to your child or a friend, everything changes.
100%.
Everything.
Oh,
right?
Mic drop. That was amazing. Totally. It's eliminating the buts. The buts are our beliefs. It's eliminating that. And like you say, is that true? But also what I love, and is so important, especially when we are comparing ourselves to so many people, is actually, do we really want the life of the people that we're comparing ourselves to? Because we only see a highlight reel of that. The reality is, I'm like you. What's successful for me is I get to spend school holidays with my son. I get to drop him off every day, and I get to pick him up after school every day and spend quality time with him. And I work my business and my clients and my interviews around that opportunity. That to me is success.
Yeah.
Everything else comes with it. That's great. But the reality is, for me, I worked, it took us a long time to get my son. He is our little miracle. I think I was definitely sent a little son to help heal me, of which he has. And he's taught me more things about myself than I've ever thought possible. And so I'm not going to jeopardize that by, shoving him into daycare or whatever. And I shouldn't say shove, because I know there's lots of people that do, and he actually goes to some after school clubs and loves that. But for me, the success for me is to spend time with him in the holidays, because I never get that back. But what I'm trying to say is, obviously, it's different for each and every one of us. And we can look at someone who's totally, killing it in the industry and think, oh, I want their life. I want to have the success that they have. But will that actually fit in with the vision and the idea of success that you have? Probably not. And if you had their life, would that make you happy? Probably not. And so we're often striving for something that probably won't make us happy. And that's why it's so important to get really clear on the goals, like you said, making sure that you have goals, but making sure you know what success means for you, making sure you know what happiness means for you, making sure you know what good health means for you, good wealth, a loving relationship, because all of these key relationships that we have, the relationship with yourself, you need to be really clear on how you want to be with yourself every day. It's going to be different to everybody else. And so when we compare, is comparing an apple with a pear, because we don't know their life. We get to see what they want us to see. And also we're not designed, genetically designed to live their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. It's basically just getting to know yourself. It's the first thing. That's why I always say, like, when you ditch that, yeah, but me, this, me, that, you start learning more. For me, it would be kind of like, okay, you see an influencer or someone successful, maybe traveling every 2-3 months, let's say something like that. And you'd say, yeah, but I can't because I have kids and they have to go to school. And then you start noticing, okay, but would you like that? Eliminate that, yeah, but I have kids, and put yourself, okay, you can't travel right now. Would you? Would you be happy doing that? Would you be happy to being like in, 5 places a year, even with your kids? Would that make you complete? And maybe you say, yeah, it will. I will be happy. And then you're going to start finding ways, okay, maybe I can homeschool my kids and really move around. Or maybe you say, oh yeah, I really wouldn't. I really like my house. I like my decor. I like my routine. And then you start to think, yeah, that successful person is not success for me, because her success, it's something that works for her, not for me. Yeah, even if I could travel, I would just travel maybe once a year. That would be amazing, but not all the time. I like, having a routine. It makes me less stressed. It makes me happy to have this routine. Seeing my kids happy with friends makes me happy. So, all those small details, that's why I say getting to know yourself and eliminating those, yeah, but, and eliminating and talking about, is that true? Asking yourself would help you a lot, because as I said in the beginning, maybe try to write down. No one's going to read that, only you. And once you write that down, it's kind of like you putting out there, and maybe you can come back and read later, and you start seeing that, okay, no judgments apart, there is no right or wrong. What can I be doing? What should I be doing? What do I want to be doing? Right? And all starts to fall in place. And yeah, you're always going to have a little bit of self-doubt in some part of your life, but if you always come back to this, like, are you self-doubting yourself? Why? Is it, coming from a safe place? It's coming from, just a worry or something like that. And you start working on this. Okay, but I shouldn't be doing that. All right, if I eliminate that, yeah, I should. Why? Is it that true? Am I not good at, making videos? Yeah, it's true. I'm not good at making videos. Can you fix that? Yeah, I could watch some YouTube channels. I could make a course or something and learn. So if you can learn, that's it. Good. Or, if you ask yourself, am I good at not making videos? No, actually not. No one ever say that. I just go and make a video. That's it. Is it going to happen something if you make a bad video? No. So just go do it, So eliminating that and asking those questions to yourself, no judgments. It's only you, right?
Yeah.
It's the same if, like, you have a child, so right? And someone listen that might understand if they have kids. If your kid come with a very beautiful drawing and it's all over the place, would you tell them, oh, it's not the same as the, a cartoon you saw on TV? You're never gonna say that. Say, oh, it's beautiful, and they will keep trying, and eventually maybe they will draw like, a cartoonist. Maybe not, but there is no harm on doing the things. Absolutely not. So yeah,
exactly. And again, there's no perfect in that either. Like, that drawing is perfect for them in that moment at that age,
right.
And it's like the fact that they've got the imagination to do it. And there's all these things that we forget when we then look at something. It's like, well, that was perfect at the time with what I had. And again, I'm sure I'll draw another one and it'll be slightly different next time. I love it when my son draws pictures. I often have wild hair, big boobs, stick arms.
Yeah, right.
No neck, just a dress. Yeah. But it's brilliant. I love it. And he always writes my name under it and it just melts my heart.
Yeah. And there's no harm in trying. He might try something else later on and do something else. And what's the problem there, right?
Totally.
You're never going to look back and tell him, see how bad you were at drawing. Now you're good. No, it was a process. It's like, you were good for that age. Now you're still good for your age now, and so on. So that's
how much you've evolved, like all of it. Yeah. Honestly, Charlene, it's been amazing. I could talk to you for hours, and I think you have made some really, really amazing points. I love the but and the eliminate the buts, and then the whys. And these are just simple conversations that we can have with ourselves. They cost nothing and they don't take up a lot of time, which are the two things you hear people say, I can't afford it and I haven't got time. You have got time to ask yourself a question. You can ask that question in the shower. You can ask that question while you're driving. You can ask that question while you're walking your kids to the school, whatever it may be. We can all make time. And this costs nothing. This is about building awareness, understanding you, getting to know your limitations, your triggers, all of that sort of stuff. And when you start to recognize that you're adding buts, like I know someone who will so in tune with saying that they can't afford something that they would turn down a free program and say they can't afford it because it's just their automatic response, but they're so oblivious of saying it. And I think when you start to ask these questions, you become a lot more responsible for the things that you're saying. And actually, you then have the choice to stop saying it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, it opens up other opportunities. Yeah. So thank you so much for everything that you've shared today. It's been really, really insightful. How can people stay connected with you? Where can they find you?
All my social media, it's at Charlene Trinsi. So everything, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I do have a group which is called the Badass Business Queens. But you can find about that in any of my socials. I'm usually more present in Facebook and Instagram, but yeah, I do have other socials, and all of them it's the same name, so it's easy for anyone to find me.
Brilliant. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll add that to the show notes. It's been a real privilege, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and to everyone today. So thank you. And thank you once again for everyone who has tuned in to listen. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will look forward to seeing you all next week. So bye for now.